In a frenetic world where divisions seem deeper every day, there is a figure who has embodied the hope and resilience of humanity for decades. This is the story of Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama, a man who transformed pain into a bridge to love and universal understanding. In 1935, in the isolated and quiet village of Taksar, located in the lush and austere hills of northeastern Tibet, a child named Lama Dondup was born. No one could have imagined that this little boy, destined to become Tenzin Gyatso, would have such an exceptional future. At just 2 years old, a delegation of monks, following ancient prophecies and celestial signs, arrived in the village recognizing in him the reincarnation of the 13th Dalai Lama, Thubten Gyatso. This moment marked a fundamental turning point not only in Tenzin's life, but in the entire spiritual and political history of Tibet. His childhood underwent a drastic change. He was taken to the Potala Palace in Lhasa, the spiritual and political heart of Tibet. Here, Tenzin was enthroned as Jamphal Ngawang Lobsang Yesh Tenzin Gyatso, becoming the 14th Dalai Lama. His education was entrusted to the rigorous and solemn monastic environment, where he learned Buddhist scriptures, philosophy, logic, Tibetan medicine, and astronomical arts, in addition to the meditative and ritual practices that define the role of a Dalai Lama. Growing up within the ancient walls of monasteries, Tenzin witnessed the dedication and expectations of a people who saw in him not only a spiritual leader, but also a symbol of resistance to external pressures. This period of intensive training was intended to prepare him not only to lead his people in faith, but also to represent Tibet on the world stage, a role he would assume with extraordinary wisdom and resilience. His youth was marked by a strong sense of responsibility and an early commitment to the welfare and freedom of his people, characteristics that have defined his life and work to this day. In 1950, when he was only 15 years old, the life of young Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama, found himself at the center of a devastating historical crisis. Chinese People's Liberation Army troops crossed the borders of Tibet, ushering in an era of tension and confrontation that would shake the very foundations of the Tibetan nation. In this turbulent context, the Dalai Lama was given the role of political leader of Tibet, a position of immense power and pressure that forced him to face unimaginable political and spiritual challenges. In assuming leadership during one of the most critical periods in his country's history, the Dalai Lama found himself faced with balancing the immediate needs of a people under occupation and the need to safeguard ancient culture and a deeply rooted spiritual heritage. His response was to undertake a series of difficult negotiations with Chinese representatives, with the aim of achieving peaceful coexistence and respect for Tibetan autonomy. As he navigated these complex geopolitical dynamics, the young leader proved himself to be a skillful strategist and staunch defender of nonviolence, principles that would continue to guide his work and influence international relations for decades. Faced with growing pressure and violent oppression in his country, the Dalai Lama chose a response contrary to hatred and reprisals, nonviolence and dialogue. This decision was not just a tactical choice, but deeply reflected his spiritual values, rooted in the Buddhist philosophy of compassion, tolerance, and universal love. He saw these principles not only as essential to the survival of his people and the preservation of their cultural identity in this time of extreme crisis, but also as a vital message to share with the entire world. His firm adherence to these values transformed him into a global symbol of peaceful resistance and gave him internationally recognized moral authority. Using dialogue as his sword and shield of nonviolence, the Dalai Lama has tirelessly sought to negotiate with China and raise international awareness of the situation in Tibet. These efforts not only aim to protect and keep the Tibetan cause alive, but have also inspired many movements and world leaders seeking to resolve conflicts through peaceful means. Through lectures, writings, and interfaith dialogues, he has sensitized millions of people to the importance of patience and mutual understanding as the foundations of peaceful coexistence and human progress. In 1959, The Dalai Lama found himself faced with a crucial choice, perhaps the most difficult of his life, following the intensification of Chinese repression in Tibet. The threat to his security and freedom had become unbearable, and after a failed popular uprising in Lhasa, he decided to undertake a dangerous journey to India. This escape, full of uncertainty and danger, led him to cross the difficult Himalayan pass, an extremely risky journey that tested his body and mind. However, his arrival in India does not mark an abandonment of his native land. On the contrary, he opened a new phase in his struggle for the freedom of Tibet. From this new international stage, the Dalai Lama began speaking out against human rights violations in Tibet, drawing global attention to the situation and mobilizing global support. India's welcome provided the Dalai Lama with a secure base from which to operate, turning his exile into the starting point of an international campaign of awareness and resistance. From there, he worked tirelessly to advance the Tibetan cause, taking every opportunity to speak on the international stage, attend conferences, and meet with world leaders. His voice, that of a leader in exile, became a powerful symbol of nonviolent resistance and moral perseverance, strengthening the Tibetan rights movement and inspiring activists and supporters around the world. This period of exile not only amplified his message of peace and nonviolence, but also solidified his reputation as one of the most influential spiritual and political leaders of the 20th century. In exile, he spoke to millions, spreading a message of peace and humanity. "I am just a simple human being," he often says, "no different from anyone else. If we have good intention, our actions will be positive." He embraced leaders and believers of all religions, promoting interfaith dialogue as a way to understand our differences, not to divide us, but to unite us. But what does it mean to be a spiritual leader in exile? For the Dalai Lama, this means using every available platform to speak out against injustice, raise awareness about the Tibetan cause, and most importantly, teach the value of internal and external compassion. In 1989, his commitment to peace was recognized worldwide when he received the Nobel Peace Prize. His message during the ceremony reflected his vision. This award reaffirms our belief that with truth, courage, and determination as our tools, nonviolence can be effective. The life of the Dalai Lama is a testament to the power of the indomitable human spirit. Despite his trials and tribulations, he retained his dignity, his humility, and above all, his unwavering commitment to compassion and universal love. Let us join this voice of hope and action. Let us learn from his wisdom and work together for a world of peace and understanding. Thank you for participating in this journey of inspiration and reflection.